listening to the voices behind Women's Cricket Chat. That's Hannah, Georgie, Cassie, Mahika and Alex. Coming up on today's podcast...
So today I'm delighted to say we are joined on this episode of Women's Cricket Chat by Andy Tennant, who is the new head coach at the Sunrisers, also former Scotland international and Cricket Scotland women's assistant coach. So Andy, welcome to the pod. Today you're joining me, Georgie and Alex. So just taken up this role and started mid-October. So how's it all going so far?
Yeah, great. First of all, thanks for having me both. Yeah, it's been great so far. So I think, as I've just said to you, I've been in post for about 3 weeks now. So first couple of weeks doing sort of remote one-to-ones with the players, just getting to know the girls and the squad. We've also got a few players who are coming in and joining us for a few months just to see where we're at. Obviously, as a new coach, just looking at the playing stock, etc. So yeah, it's been really good. The welcome's been fabulous. Great bunch of people. Really looking forward to working with them. Lots of talent. So I'm super excited.
What drew you to the role? Because obviously Sunrisers was a new team set up when they did the regional restructure, and they've had a bit of turbulence and instability. So what made you take up the role, and how are you going to help provide that stability?
Yeah, so I guess all the things you've just spoken about, Alex, were the things that attracted me to the role. So the first thing to be really clear on is I've been looking for an opportunity to work in the women's game for a little while now, and I'd kind of dipped my toe in the water, obviously helping out Peter Ross as assistant to the women's team. I'd also gone and worked in hockey for a few years as a performance director, and that had really sort of, I suppose, lit the fire in terms of just understanding the potential of female athletes and how far this can go. So from that perspective, I was just looking for that opportunity. The Sunrisers come up. I spoke to a few sort of old friends, if you like, who are working in the women's game, and asked them about the project, for want of a better word. I always hate it when football managers say that, so I don't know why I've just said it. But yeah, and they said, look, great bunch of people. You'll enjoy working with them. There's a huge amount of potential there. It's a big region, obviously representing London and the East, if you like, but nine counties, 3 first class, 6 national counties. So there's a big talent pool there as well. So I was keen to get my teeth into a big project, and this is one. So lots of opportunities, lots of room for improvement, exciting group of players. So yeah, what's not to like?
And there was a lot of excitement over your sort of, I'm going to say in inverted commas, vision for the Sunrisers when you first joined. That was the discussion and the excitement at, we love Andy's vision. Could you talk us through what your vision is? I mean, I know it's improving on the results Sunrisers might have had so far. That's probably quite near the top of the list. But what else is on there?
Yeah, lots, to be honest. But I think it's that culture of continuous improvement. I don't think there's any magic bullets in professional sport or performance sport. I think it's a combination of hard work, doing things better, doing things smarter, and just working hard day in, day out, and taking those progressions. So this, for me, it's a long-term project, but that's not to say we can't be competitive next year. I don't mean that at all. But I think we understand the journey we're on. We're really clear about where we are. We're really clear about where we want to go. We want the Sunrisers to be an entertaining, attacking, successful team, and I think we've plotted that journey out. And I think the other thing for me is really engaging the player group and the support staff who've been around. Laura Marsh had obviously come in last year, and I had a long chat with Laura about the good, bad, and indifferent that she saw. So yeah, just engaging with everyone and just really understanding what we want to be about, and then going and making it happen. So yeah, I'd like to think we've got a clear vision of where we want to go and how we want the Sunrisers to move forward. I think we weren't starting from the front of the grid. So, coming in and looking at it historically, we weren't one of the 6 Super League franchises. So us and Sparks were kind of created out of what's left, for want of a better word. That sounds terrible. But so I think we were starting somewhere near the back of the grid. So the slow start isn't a huge surprise, I don't think. But what we want to do now is we understand the climate and the environment we're working in, and we just want to push forward really quickly. So hopefully I sold a bit of that vision and energy to take the thing forward.
And what's it been like to work with the players? Because obviously you've mentioned a little bit, but with the instability that they've had, like, how have they taken to you, and what have training sessions sort of been like?
Oh, well, you need to ask them that, I guess. But Yeah, I'm a pretty open and honest guy, I think. So hopefully they'll have taken me as they found me. I'm very much about the players owning their own journey. So and I'm also very much about us all being in this together. So this isn't about, you know, myself and a small group of support staff dictating to players what we're going to do. That's, for me, that's not how it works. So it's really about just getting us all on the same page in the same place, and just moving things forward together. So hopefully they'll have seen someone who's open, enthusiastic, who hopefully has a bit of experience and knowledge, who can take this exciting group forward. So I hope that's how they find me, but you'd probably need to ask them, Alex.
And you've obviously had various roles within Cricket Scotland, having also played for Cricket Scotland. So that's going to boost your CV for them in the first place. And then with the under-19 women's side, but then with hockey as well. Is that something you can sort of use crossovers from a different sport and then build on that experience that you've already had?
Yeah, great observation, I think, Georgie. Yeah, that was the reason I went to hockey, because I'd been working in cricket for a long time. I've been working up in Scotland for a long time as well. And I just felt that I needed to sort of broaden my horizons a bit, always looking to learn. And I was really keen to work in team sport. So hockey was one of the obvious ones. I was also keen to work in a Commonwealth and Olympic sport to see how they prepare for multi-sport, and how the whole on more things, probably more sort of government-driven programs, if you like. So I learned a huge amount from there. I learned a huge amount about working with female athletes as well, I think. So you know, there was lots of learning in there for me, and understanding how rewarding that can be. So I think it gave me some great learning, but it also gave me some inspiration to, you know, to come away and try and, you know, put my skill and expertise to work in the female game and help drive it forward.
And I mean, you certainly did that within your 5 years at Scottish Hockey. You oversaw programs like the Playgrounds Podium Pathway, the creation of the Domestic Super Series at senior and youth level, and the groundbreaking Brave Performance Blueprint, and the key initiatives such as the Brave Academy program. Could you explain a little bit of the reason behind that and how it all came about?
Yeah, so when I went into hockey, it was lots of great people, a huge player base, which is I was actually staggered at how big the player base for hockey is, and how, especially in the female game, as to how, you know, well served it is, particularly in the independent schools, but even in state schools as well. The size and breadth of hockey programs. So what I saw was lots of great activity, lots of talent, and probably the structures hadn't quite kept up with the pace of change of sort of performance sport, if you like, or performance development within sport. So we had quite a lot of historical structures, sort of old style district competitions and things like that had been run for decades and were still done the same way. So I think what I tried to do is bring some of my knowledge and probably professionalism from cricket, just to try and overhaul some things, because I know cricket sometimes gets a bit of a hard time for being a traditional sport, but it's actually moved really well with the times. So I think from my perspective, bringing some of that to bear in hockey, hopefully was successful, putting some structures in place around, you know, having that stepping stone between club and international hockey. We felt was really important. So having a domestic super series within Scotland was a priority for us, and also making sure that our player development pathways and our programs were as up to date as they could be, and sort of cutting edge, and making sure that we were using all the tools we had at our disposal and all the modern techniques that were available to try and develop what was a real core of talented players. And hopefully we've done that. And I think especially on the female side, we've got an exciting group of young players. The male side of the game as well in Scotland, there's some real talent coming through as well. And look, I'm not taking credit for that, but the people who are out there working on the ground can take credit for that. But I think if you put the structures in place, then that just helps the journey move more quickly and gives those players better access to the support they need to be world class. So I guess taking that, and also you can overlay that with the Sunrisers, working with Danny and making sure that this isn't just about the 18 girls who are playing for the Sunrisers senior team. This is about making sure that our academy and our EPP programs and the county age group programs are all benefiting from us being as progressive as we possibly can, which is one of the values of the Sunrisers region, is for us to be really, really progressive and do it smarter and better. So that's a big thing for me, that we join the whole thing together. And that was actually one of the things that attracted me when Danny Warren, the regional director, was sort of selling it to me as well, was, this is, we were built by our region for our region, and really keen to develop local players, because it's a huge marketplace, 10, 11 million people in our region. So, from that perspective, it's just really, a really exciting project. So hopefully I can bring some of that sort of more strategic knowledge as well to the Sunrisers and help the whole region, because that would be, when I look back after however long I've been here, I would hope that the whole region's better and not just the Sunrisers team having won stuff.
What I love is that there's almost that reflection between, the regional development of the hockey in Scotland and what that does nationally. That's the same kind of thing that's happened with the women's cricket game here. We've got this development of the regional sides, and then the extra funding that is being put into it this year. What was it? The increased 3.5 million was just announced this week by the ECB for the regional game. How important do you think that is going forward, not just at Sunrisers, but in the game as a whole?
Oh, it's gold dust. It's the thing that, it's the petrol for the engine, isn't it? It's the thing that drives everything forward. We've got a great product, we've got great products and great talent. Everything's there, but we need that petrol for the engine to take the machine forward. And that investment is, first of all, it's fantastic that the ECB are being proactive and getting out there and making those investments. So to have 10 full-time pros in the Sunrisers region, to have almost 100 now full-time female athletes in England is fantastic as well. So if you actually sense check back and look at 10, 15 years ago and where the game is at, and you look now, it's like it's night and day. But the money's crucial. So when I reflect back to my time with Cricket Scotland and the men's game, which was professionalising through the noughties, where we went from amateur to professional, it was the same process. What the game in Scotland and the associate nations have lacked is that funding to make their players full-time and to run programmes and competitions that give them access to regular competition at the right level. So while they haven't been able to do that in Scotland with the men's game, the women's game in England has that support from the national governing body and has the commercial traction within the game to move things forward. So, that is one of the things that excited me. The direction of travel and the sort of exponential growth of the women's game has just been a joy to watch, and it's something. I've got a daughter, so it's something that I'm really passionate about. That equality of opportunity to be a world class superstar in the best sport on the planet.
And you have got Scotland international Abtar Maksud at the Sunrisers, who we've had on this podcast before, obviously plays at Scotland. A very good team, the women's team in Scotland. How can we increase the funding and the participation and what they get for Cricket Scotland's women's side? Because obviously we've seen the men's side recently not quite get through to those Super 12s in the World Cup. It's been exciting stuff. The traction around them has been amazing, and it's obviously come a long way. You will have seen that over the years. But what can we do for the women's side as well? I know you're not as involved with that anymore, but you've got to have an eye on it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, look, still passionate about it. I'm very proud of being Scottish and British, but yeah, so I'm always keeping an eye on what's happening there. I think that first of all about Abs is she's a superstar human being. So she's a great person, and she's an extremely talented cricketer. And I'm just really looking forward to working with her in a full-time environment to see where her journey can take her. She's a brilliant role model for so many people out there. So that's a great start, but really looking forward to trying to take her game to the next level as well. So yeah, there are lots of Abtar Maksuds in Scotland. There are lots of talented young female cricketers as well. I think the under-19 World Cup is brilliant exposure for them. So hats off to the ICC for finally coming to the party with that and having a women's under-19 World Cup to go alongside the boys under-19 World Cup. And obviously Grace will be going from the Sunrisers with the England team.
Do you think she could captain that side? Because I've had an eye on her for a while thinking that, and I've spoken to her dad before when at a Sunrisers game, and she's just got that kind of cricket brain. Apparently, even when she was really young, she used to sort of stand by the umpire and get all the, sort of chatting away to him about this, that. And do you think she could captain that side potentially?
Oh, look, she could. Not for me to tell Chris Guest and Richard Bedbrick how to do their job, but look, she could. She's an incredibly smart cricketer, given given how long she's been on the planet, she would never be shy of a few words. So she's not going to clam up in the dressing room. So yeah, look, she could captain that side. She's a talented opening batter and off spinner. I'd probably be keen to let her just do that because she's so good at it. But yeah, if I'm sure if she was asked to captain that side, she would be all over it and she would do a fantastic job.
Also, just a little bit on your time back with Cricket Scotland after you left Scotland Hockey. I'm just curious to know if you ever got to chat to Sue Strachan at all and like run anything past her, because we've had Sue on and she's got great visions for Cricket Scotland, but I just wanted to pick your brains on it.
And we love Sue.
Yeah, what's not to love about Sue? She's a smart, sporty woman who's a doctor and has got great chat as well. So yeah, no, Sue's been fantastic, and her role as manager with a women's team has been outstanding. She's that pastoral care side of things, and she cares deeply about the girls, but she also knows sport and she's a competitor. So she's been fantastic in that role. She was an excellent chair of Cricket Scotland. Obviously, things happened up there that I'm sure she was probably pretty annoyed about. She was almost, I think, left holding the baby when the bomb went off a little bit as chair of Cricket Scotland. So it's a shame that she's not involved there from that perspective. But I just hope she can keep giving to the women's game, because she would have, as an ambassador and as an administrator and manager within the women's game, she's got so much to offer, and I hope she can do that, whether that's for Scotland or ICC level or whatever that may be. It's important that people like Sue are kept in the game, because there's such valuable assets, and again, she's just an outstanding human being. So it's much easier to do business and to get stuff done with people who are like that.
And so a bit more about your role, having played for Scotland as well, on that link between playing and coaching. How easy is it to go from being so involved with playing in the men's game to then moving on and coaching in the women's game? And how can we encourage more male players and male coaches into the women's game?
I think that's already happening. So if you'd asked me 10 years ago if I would want to coach in the women's game, the answer would be maybe, but probably not. Whereas, I suppose two things have happened. One, I've been fortunate enough to be involved more and more with female cricketers and female athletes. My daughter started playing, sadly, she's no longer playing, but my daughter started playing as well in the kind of in the noughties, if you like. So you start to pay a bit more attention to what the structures and things look like, and you just look and think we can do so much here. There's so much potential here, and when you see an opportunity like that, it's hard not to be drawn to it. So I find myself just more and more drawn to the attraction of the women's game and how it was being played, and obviously the skill levels have risen exponentially as well. So from a coaching perspective, you look at it and think, I can make a difference here. So it almost felt like I was being drawn in, and it kind of felt like it feels like a no-brainer in the end that, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to be involved in that? And I think a lot of male coaches are starting to, and I also think there's a certain type of coach who's more likely to be successful in the women's game, and I think a lot of those guys are starting to migrate towards it because they see the challenges and rewards that working with female athletes brings, and I think they get drawn to that challenge as well. So I think that process is already starting. And to go back to the first point of your question, I guess the transition from playing to coaching is one that some people make by accident, some people make by mistake, and some people are probably always going to do it. And I probably felt from the age of 25 that I was going to coach, because you can probably just tell I was interested in first of all the trials and tribulations of being a left arm spinner and trying to make my way and become a professional cricketer, which I found incredibly bloody hard, if I'm being honest. So while being talented, but not as successful as I wanted to be. So actually analysing my own journey and my interactions with coaches and thinking, I really want to do that because I'm interested in how people perform and how people get better. And I also want to make sure that the next generation can have some, not better support and input, because I had lots of good coaches. But we keep taking coaching forward and how we help people get better forward. So I probably always knew I was going to go there. and it just felt like a natural continuation towards the end of my playing career, to do more coaching, to get involved in coaching, and then to sort of migrate into that as playing finishes, coaching starts. Because if you want to stay in the game, you can either sit in the boundary and tell everyone how good you were and criticize everyone ad nauseum for 30 years, or you can get stuck in and help people get better and move the game forward. And I always felt that I wanted to be the latter of those two. So I always knew it was coming, but I had great support from Cricket Scotland. You know, Roddy Smith, who was the chief executive at the time, was always really good at promoting us to get on ECB level 3, level 4 coaching programs, and they were great learning environments for me. You know, in the early 2000s, doing my level 3 at the old Lillishall with some great people, you know, Gordon Lord and some great coach developers and educators who worked in the ECB system, and then on to doing the level 4 program, which was the best learning experience that I've had in my life. As you can tell, I probably wasn't a great scholar, but yeah, it was just a fantastic learning experience. So I've been fortunate that I've been well supported, and I've had the opportunities to learn about coaching, and then I've had opportunities to see some really good coaches work, which as my time as a performance director, I really enjoyed watching good coaches at work. And as we all know, coaching, you're probably a bit of a magpie. You just steal stuff from other people constantly, don't you? So there's no original thoughts anymore. So you just steal stuff that you know is going to resonate with you and you want to use in your coaching practice. And I've done that, yeah, a lot, if I'm being honest.
And having coached in the men's game and in the women's game, what are some of the main differences between the two genders?
Hey, great question. So the similarities are, we're all human. We've all got frailties. We've all got egos. We've all got bodies that break. We've all got physical limitations. So that, you know, the 98% of our DNA is shared. So there's so many similarities. So you're taking the vast majority of the knowledge that you have and just applying it, and recognize you're working with an athlete. So I think most of it is the same. Where there are differences, and I would be really keen to highlight that. And I guess what used to happen in cricket was, I think working with male cricketers was the norm, and then working with females was seen as something different. And I think going and working in hockey has taught me that that's not how it is. You know, you have athletes, some are male and some are female, and there are challenges and rewards that are slightly different for working with both genders. And I'm a great believer in that. So, you know, for where female athletes probably need a bit more reinforcement to build self-confidence, that can sometimes be a challenge, whereas the challenge on the male side is not building self-confidence, it's getting them to listen to what you're talking about, because their off-confidence isn't the issue. It's actually listening that's the issue. But then when you look at a female athlete, they're the best listeners in the world, and they're sponges and they want to learn, and there's so much more receptiveness to coaching and to being coached. I think that just makes it a much more rewarding enterprise, if I'm being honest. So there are pros and cons on both sides of it, but there are just some differences technology-wise and psychology-wise, I guess. Opportunities in the women's game, and the runway we have to make this thing better is so much longer at the moment, and so much more fruitful, that I'm just excited to be part of the women's game.
And what's your favourite aspect of coaching the women's game?
My favourite aspect? That's another great question, Georgie. My favourite aspect of coaching the women's game? I think I probably just said it. I think the receptiveness of the athletes and the lack of ego around getting better. I think it feels like as a coach, I'm working in a receptive space, you know, where there's a real thirst for learning, because I think we know a lot of female athletes don't have as many miles on the clock in terms of cricket played as some of their male counterparts. You know, when boys have been playing in under 8, under 9 hardball cricket all their lives and have been playing 40, 50, 60 games a year, a lot of the female athletes don't have those miles on the clock yet. So actually the learning journey is much more condensed, but actually, so there's more information we can get in there, and there's more learning we can do. So again, it feels like there's lots to go at. So again, that's an exciting thing for a coach, you know, rather than just having a 17, 18, 19-year-old male athlete who's 95% of what they're going to be, and you're just tinkering around the edges with some polishing some rough edges. With female athletes, there's feels like there's more to work with, which is great. And yeah, so that's probably it. I think that receptiveness and lack of ego and just willingness to learn is probably the most fun for a coach.
And on that topic of willingness to learn, you've got quite a young side at the Sunrisers. Do you think that's something that is good for you, coming in as a new coach? You've got these youngsters who really have that willingness to learn. They want to grow. You've obviously got a few of the older ones in there, Captain Kelly Castle, who we've also had. You've no longer got Naomi Ditani, who's moved on. We don't yet know at the time of recording where she's gone yet, but I'm sure we will all find out soon. But it must be quite exciting to have sort of a young group of sponges and you can see their potential.
Yeah, I'll be honest. One of the things that attracted me to the job is, working with young players and helping them get better and building something. Now, we're not building it from scratch because we've got, club and county age group coaches who've done fantastic work. We've got, a great academy system with Luke Pomfret and quite a successful academy system who are used to winning games with some dynamic young, players coming through that system. I've been fortunate enough to work with Molly Barber-Smith again, whose parents are Scottish and she's Scottish eligible, but is in our academy program now. So I see the talent that's coming through and think it's just a great opportunity to help young female athletes be the best they can be and be professional cricketers and have a long and healthy future in the game. So yeah, that is exciting. We've also got some good experience there as well, though, with people like Kelly and Joy Gardner and Maddie, who's had England experience. So and Cords as well, Cordelia Griffiths. So we've got some good experience there as well, but we have a core group of young players that are going to get better and better and better. And if we can help just build the jigsaw puzzle that makes the successful cricket team, then yeah, we'll be flying and hopefully flying for years to come.
And you mentioned earlier that you had an interest in spin or you played as a spinner. What advice would you give to someone starting out who wanted to give spin a try?
Yeah, so first of all, give it a try. It's easier on the body, so you'll have a longer career. That I can assure you of. Yeah, so it's probably the most challenging and rewarding aspect of the game of cricket, I think, is spin bowling, because you don't have that pace to pin the batter to the sight screen or conquer them with fear. It's definitely a more subtle art that takes a bit longer to master. But I would encourage patience, but I would encourage young bowlers just to give it a spin the ball, get it up and down, spin it hard, hit the top of off, and we'll be fine. And just give it a go, because you never know what's for you, whether it's spin bowling, whether it's pace bowling, whether it's being a medium pacer or a wicket keeper. You never know. But I would encourage young girls to give it a go, because I think the game is definitely moving in a direction where aggressive spin and aggressive pace in the women's game is going to start to dominate a little bit more. And I think that the kind of middle ground of medium pace bowlers who get it down there, there's always going to be a place for them in the game. But I think that space will shrink as more young Izzy Wongs and Freya Kemps and Lauren Bells and quick bowlers come through, and more Charlie Deans and Maddie Villiers and Sophie Eccleston start to appear as well. That I think the space for that kind of, I hate to use the word military medium because that's unfair, because a lot of those medium pace bowlers are very skillful, but I think they will get squeezed. So give spin and pace a try and see where it takes you.
Do you think spin has become cool these days?
It's always been cool, Georgie.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'll rephrase it. Has spin become a cool thing in the women's game? It may have always been cool in the men's game, but it's quite the thing now.
Yeah, I think so. It's a way to be successful in the women's game, certainly to this point. Good quality spin bowlers in the women's game are extremely difficult to play. And I think as they continue to improve, I think as spin rates go up and we start to physically prepare our young spin bowlers better, they're going to get more revolutions on the ball and are going to become even stronger. But the other side of that arms race is we now have female cricketers who hit the ball much harder and who are now starting to whack it out the park and hit the ball straight back down the ground. So spinners are becoming challenged. So I think it's probably the front line of where the game is at the moment around that. We've had quick bowlers around for a while now, and people are pushing those boundaries at 75 plus miles an hour, which is great. But I think where the front line is that spinners improving against batters whose aggressive skill sets are improving significantly. When you watch players now, especially moving laterally to combat the lines that spinners bowl, I think is something that's started to emerge in the women's game over the last couple of years with franchise cricket. So I think it's just moving really quickly, and it's just really exciting. Who gets ahead in that arms race between aggressive batting and spinners with great variety.
So I just wanted to touch on, you mentioned the franchises and the growth of that and what that's doing to impact the game. I wanted to know what your kind of opinion on that. Obviously, we've had the emergence of the 100, the Women's Big Bash is currently going on, the ever tentative but probably happening, but we think happening but not yet confirmed Women's IPL, the Women's PSL, the Women's CPL, and then the likes of someone like Deandra Dottin, who's actually left international cricket completely just to play franchise. It's great that we've got all this, but people leaving international maybe not that great. But what's your thought on the growth of women's domestic and franchise cricket and what that's going to do going forward?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, and not forgetting, obviously, fair break, because we know what fair break means to me, and that's where I met my new best friend Sue. So
I'll look fair break. And I can only speak from Scotland women playing against Fairbreak this year in Edinburgh, just how good a concept Fairbreak is and the opportunities that it's giving players, and Sonali Patel being a classic example of an English player, but Marika Hills and people like that who are getting that opportunity to show how good they are. So first of all, great concept, which is to be applauded. So that certainly would be a big tick for Fairbreak and what they're doing for the women's game, especially when you look at Associate World and the opportunities it's giving female athletes in countries that don't have that great cricket tradition. So I think that is brilliant. In terms of franchise cricket, I think franchise cricket is good for the women's game because my sense is that it will allow players to play more, it will cross-pollinate ideas, it will create more female superstars in the game if the franchises are done well. Whereas the men's game, it almost feels like we're squeezing, whether it's the 100 or the CPL or whatever international franchise league, it feels like we're squeezing it into an already overcrowded schedule with players who are already overplayed. So I would suggest that franchise cricket is more of a challenge for the men's game than it currently is for the women's game. I think what the women's game will have to do and should keep an eye on is the amount of franchise cricket and the primacy of international cricket, and making sure that the international cricket remains the pinnacle. So as you say, for a Deandra Dottin to I suppose now do the same as a lot of our West Indian male counterparts have done and said, well, actually, I don't want to play for the West Indies. I'm going to go and play franchise cricket because that's where there's more money and it's probably a more enjoyable experience. Then she's quite right to do that. But we as a sport need to make sure that playing international cricket and playing domestic cricket within your own country remains the most attractive option for especially talented young female players. So I think is it good for the women's game, franchise cricket? Yes. But do we need to make sure that we don't make some of the, I wouldn't call them mistakes, but get ourselves into some of the pickles that the men's game is getting in around scheduling with franchise opportunities, and whether there's a smart way that we can make sure that there are a number of pinnacle franchise competitions that are seen as almost the premiership of franchise competitions, and the best players in the world migrate towards them in 2 or 3 windows. You've obviously got the 100, you've got the women's BBL, and potentially an IPL coming on stream, which will be a must play, won't it, if they do it anything like the men's IPL. So you can already see that there's 3, maybe 4 sort of premier franchise competitions. But then can we have franchise competitions below that allow the players who are currently getting opportunities with Fairbreak to get exposure? So almost a kind of a development phase of franchise competitions where emerging young players from Associate Worlds and wherever can then go and play in those franchise competitions, and they might happen at the same time or might happen at very similar times. So I don't know, I'm talking out loud, but I can't help but think there's some learning take from the way the men's one has in an unregulated way because of private investment just happened, and stuff just keeps springing up, and then we need to keep making holes in the international calendar for it. Almost feels like the men's game is going down a route where it'll be like football, where there'll be international windows in a franchise calendar, which for me is the wrong way around. So yeah, good for the game, but we do need to keep an eye on the volume and quality of it.
And Georgie obviously mentioned earlier about Scotland doing well in the T20 qualifiers and just falling at that last hurdle. And we've seen on the women's side last September, Scotland women beat Ireland women in the T20 Cup qualifiers. Do you think we'll ever see a tri-series between England, Ireland and Scotland? Because obviously next year England are set to play Ireland women, and it's something that is sort of there on the men's side, but it seems to be predominantly India, Australia, New Zealand. So do you think we could ever see like a British tri-series?
Yeah, you would hope so. I think, like, when I was performance director for Cricket Scotland, that I was always trying to make that things like that happen. You know, when we did things in the men's game like the North Sea Pro Series, and competitions where the Irish and the Dutch and ourselves would play tri-series. I think, if I'm being honest, I'm sure England has ambitions, elsewhere, and I feel that England sometimes looked at these things and say, well, yeah, it would be a nice to do, but actually, if somebody's offering me, an A series against Australia in Australia for 2 months, or a tri-series against Scotland, Ireland and the Netherlands, and an ICC Europe 11 or fair break, then it's not a difficult choice for them. So I would like to think that would happen, like a UK Four Nations or a European Four Nations would happen. And I think for developing England players, and I know the England A programme is getting bigger on the women's side. I think there's A games against Australia next year alongside the Ashes, which I think will be fantastic. So I think even for young England players, in England, what was the academy, or an England A team playing against Scotland and Ireland and potentially the Netherlands, I think would be a good quadrangular, and I think would probably be pitched about right. So yeah, and I think, without speaking for Scotland, I think more exposure to competition against the English domestic teams for the Scotland women's team would be good, because I know they valued the county programmes that they used to play in, albeit I think they were playing at a level that they could probably have played at a higher level than that. So I think those types of exposures on for Ireland, for Netherlands and for Scotland, I think can only be good. And we can already see, Irish players, Gabby Lewis, Orla Prendergast, some of the Irish players, Kim Garth, who unfortunately went to Australia. We've had Lee Kasparek, who's gone to New Zealand, etc. Kirsty Gordon, who's gone to England, etc. So yeah, stopping that drain to other countries and giving those countries the opportunity, I think, is something I'd be passionate about, because there just isn't enough cricket. The men's team fell short in the T20 first phase. They hadn't played enough cricket. They've got there's an outstanding team there of great cricketers. You look at young guys like Mark Watt and George Munsey, who whacks it out of the park, and some of the young players who are coming through, and some of the guys who've been there for a while. They just haven't had the volume of cricket. So Scotland had 2 T20 internationals leading into the T20. That's all they played in the last year. So you can't expect to be in a rhythm and to perform at your best when that's the only opportunities you've had. So they were never beaten before they started, because they gave a great account of themselves, beating the West Indies. Should have nailed Ireland and didn't, and that's what's bitten us on the backside, isn't it? Is not closing out that game against Ireland, or we'd be in the Super 12. And on the women's side, very, very similar. The preparation phase, I was assistant to Peter, the preparation phase, if it wasn't for fair break and playing Ireland just before the T20 prep phase, we would have played no cricket over the summer. So it's very difficult to go in and compete against countries that are playing, not necessarily week in, week out, but have got big fixture programs when you're surviving off scraps, and that's really, really difficult. That unfortunately is Scotland's reality, probably Netherlands' reality a little bit as well. Ireland have got more opportunities because they're now a full member, but again, that's for the World Game to sort out the competition schedule and decide whether it wants to globalize the game or decide whether it wants to make lots of money for a small number of countries. And I'll step off my high horse at that moment before I get into trouble.
No, but it's really interesting what you were saying about domestically and stuff like that? Because I know there's been rumblings and murmurs on Twitter about, on the men's side, potentially expanding the T20 Blast to Scotland. So what would you think about that? And potentially if they're able to expand the 100 to, say, Scotland, because we've got a Welsh side, but we don't have a Scottish side.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, look, I think T20 cricket, we've obviously been there before from a Scottish perspective. We'd been there before with the Norwich Union League, CB40, YB40, all sorts of different names. That 40, 45 over competition, Scotland played in it for 10, 11 years, successfully in parts and unsuccessfully in parts. I think T20 would be much more attractive, certainly to Scotland, and would probably be easier for the counties as well to be going up for a T20 game rather than, a sort of all-day game and staying at both ends. The practicalities of travel for 40, 50 over cricket are different. So I think the Vitality Blast would be a great outlet for Scotland men's team. The 100, I don't know. It feels like, yeah, I think it's a slightly different beast, the 100. So whether there would ever be a Scottish franchise in the 100, I don't know the answer to that. But certainly from a Vitality Blast point of view, I think that would be great for Scotland. And on the women's side, to have, as I said, having more contact with the 8 regional franchises, I think would be good. But again, I'm not. I've stepped away from the strategic side of things and the performance directing, because some of those things are, when they're out with your control and when you can see what needs to happen and doesn't happen, that can become a big frustration for you. And I know the Irish and the Scots and administrators all over the place get frustrated when they see what this game can be if we truly want to globalise it. But the leading associate countries probably need a bit more support to do that, and take a leaf out of football's book and look at how they've globalised a game in 40 years that is just a cash cow for everyone, and not just for a few big countries.
And so will you be using the ideas of the likes of Mark Watt and sending your bowlers out with pieces of paper? We'll just see the Sunrisers bowlers heading out and whipping these bits of paper out, but like, okay, right.
Yeah, all I can say is if Mark Watt had a piece of paper, it must have had big writing on it. So Mark is an incredibly talented game player, because he by his own admission would admit he's not the biggest turner of the ball, but he's probably just about the smartest game savvy spin bowler that I've seen. And he's a brilliant kid. I've known him since he was 13, 14, and he's always been willing to experiment with different things and play around with stuff to make himself as elusive as possible, if you like, which makes his skill set eminently suited to T20 cricket. His 23, 24 yarders, his carom balls, his leg breaks, because he started off as a left arm leggy originally. So it came quite naturally to him, and he, but it just shows you what is possible all over the planet. So, but he's a great example of someone who's now finding his feet through exposure. That exposure probably could have happened 4 or 5 years earlier for him, but he got his opportunities at Derbyshire. He's done well there. I know he's thriving under Mickey Arthur, who he loves as a coach, and really enjoys the Derbyshire environment. Seems to be a real close, good group of people down there. So he's loving that, and I just hope he now gets the rewards he deserves and plays in the BBL or the IPL and actually makes the living he deserves out of the game, because he's worked his backside off, and he's a top lad as well.
Reflecting on that, just if we bring it across to the women's side of things, I guess things like the 100 have done the same sort of thing. We've seen the likes of, we always talk about the first year of the 100, it sort of springboarded Alice Capsey into the world's awareness, and now she's absolutely flying, literally flown over to Australia and is bossing it out, playing for England. That shows just how important these franchises are for not necessarily just associate players, but young players coming through and the evolution of their career, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's where I think when we were speaking earlier about the benefits of the 100 and franchise cricket in the women's game, when you look at someone like an Izzy Wong, who went over and played Big Bash, and then all of a sudden is playing the 100 and then makes a test debut, and the rise is almost meteoric. But Izzy's been at that for a while, but she just now has the platform to show the skills that she's got, as do many young players. And I'm hoping people like Grace will follow that and be the next raft of players who play in a women's IPL and who star in the Big Bash and make their name there, because I think that exposure is all the girls have needed, isn't it? just to give them that inspiration to say, you know, I can be this, I can be a superstar in this sport. And just the difference that creates. And I can't share the lived experience of a young female athlete who's 17, 18, 19, but it must be so exciting at the moment to think, wow, I can make a living out of this, and I can probably make a lot of money moving forward as well. And I can be a superstar like, you know, my heroes who were probably previously Serena Williams and, you know, tennis players and people like that. Or
we had Sophia Smale on. We just released her podcast this week, and actually her hero growing up was Serena Williams.
Yeah, and look, a few of the girls that I've spoken to, they speak about Jessica Ennis-Hill, Serena Williams, you know, those role models have come from other sports. But now the 17, 18, 19-year-olds start to talk about Charlotte Edwards and Nat Sever and people like, you know, Beth Mooney. So that's changing, which is great, because those female role models are now there for this generation coming. And wouldn't it be great if, you know, if Grace Scrivens and Izzy Wong and Lauren Bell are those people that 18, 19-year-old girls are talking about in 7, 8, 9 years' time, about they inspired me to get involved in the game. So that just shows how the runway we've got in the women's game, and the traction and the potential we have.
And you mentioned Charlotte Edwards, who obviously England legend, but heads up the Vipers, who quite often are the team to beat. You'll be taking her on this year. Are you excited for the idea of, you know, the coach matchups now as well?
Yeah, you know, I haven't really thought about that too much, because the coaches don't bat and bowl. So yeah, we want to put competitive sides out, and we do look at matchups and are trying to outthink each other. But I think for me, it's giving and supporting the girls to get the information and the skills they need to go out and take on what is a very good side. And, you know, Vipers have been a powerhouse, and if there is such a thing in the women's game for a few years now, they've got a fearsome bowling attack. Charlotte has surrounded herself with lots of good cricketers down there. So from that perspective, they are a bit of a yardstick. You know, they're a team that the other teams aspire to beat, and we're the same as that. But I think I'd be much more focused on getting our young female athletes prepared to take these girls on and show what they can do, and that'll be the satisfaction. And I'm sure Charlotte and I'll shake hands and have a chat at the end of the game. So yeah.
And so bringing it back to you and the Sunrisers, you're starting to get to know the girls and the players and the squad around that. What's the next step? So we're recording this beginning of November, so it must be coming back into sort of winter training and that. What's next for you and the Sunrisers?
Yeah, so we're in a bit of a physical block at the moment. So the girls finished towards the end of September, have had 3-4 weeks off to go and recharge the batteries, let the body and the mind rest a bit. So lots of people have been away on holiday, but we're now back in. So we had a welcome back day last Sunday, so Halloween weekend, where we kind of connected as a group. So we had the vast majority of the players in at University of Hertfordshire, at the sports campus in there. So, and we're now in a physical training block where the group will train 3-4 times a week through November, and we will start again at Finchley in the indoor centre in December, where we'll do a sort of a technical development phase through December and January, and then get into hopefully outdoors at Merchant Taylors, you know, pre-season for 6 weeks pre-season through late February into March. And then get into pre-season preparation in April to kick off the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy on, I want to say 21st, 22nd of April, something like that. So we've got some distinct phases that we now work through to get the team prepared. And you know, part of that is upskilling individuals and just making sure we're really clear about taking people's games forward, technically, tactically, physically, and mentally, but also then bonding the group to put that jigsaw puzzle I talked about earlier and put that together. So we're giving the players real role clarity and what's being expected of them as well. So as we roll up to the season, things become more specific and look much more representative to the game. And then once we get outdoors, we crack on, and just really excited to move towards a new season, a new summer, and a new opportunity for us to win lots of games of cricket. So more cricket this year for the women's teams, which is great, and just more opportunities to play. So yeah, just really excited about moving through those phases, and can't wait for late April already.
Yeah, it must be an exciting time for you. You know, just getting started, you can get your teeth into a new squad, a new team, you get your new kit, your new stash, and that Sunrisers kit is really nice. So we'd take that as well. Yeah, we like that. The sort of stripe, the T21, I love a bit of that.
Yeah,
So it's
definitely got
really
the best kit.
exciting. Yeah, it's really nice. I'm not sure about some of the others. The Scotland kit though, that purple. I don't know how you feel about it being purple, but everyone loves that one. That was a nice one.
No quality. No, a very Scottish colour, purple as well. The
Okay,
colour of
we'll
heather.
take that.
So yeah, no,
So,
it's great kit.
yeah, so an exciting time for you. All the fresh, new, shiny things, names, learning, all that kind of stuff to come from us. But we do like to sort of round off podcasts with a few quick fire ones, just a bit more fun ones. Kind of hoping maybe some of them are a bit different because of the Scottish heritage. So I'm going to kick off with one of our favourite. What is your favourite item at a traditional cricket tea?
Cricket teas have given me a love for salad. So I do love salad sandwiches. So it'd probably be a coronation chicken salad sandwich, I would say.
Okay, fair. Do you have tablet at Scottish cricket matches at tea?
No, but we should, because tablet is one of God's great inventions.
And that is like ultimate energy, isn't it? You know,
It's
you
just
need
sugar.
energy boost. It is. You might as well just go
sugar.
get a spoon and instead of putting the sugar in your tea, just like.
Why Scotland's top of the heart attack capital of Western Europe.
Will you be celebrating Burns Night, which is coming up soon, isn't it?
Well, it's January, so we've got St Andrew's Day on the 30th, and then Burns Night is 25th of January. So yes, I do, and I love haggis.
And please tell me you're gonna like rock up to all the events for Sunrisers in a kilt.
Formal events, absolutely. Maybe not training, but formal events, yeah.
Other than haggis, what is your favourite Scottish dish?
Tandoori chicken makni masala from the Taj in Prestwick. Yeah, I love Indian food, and the heritage of Indian cooking in Scotland is strong. So that would be my second favourite. But good old, I don't know if you don't have square slice sausage in England, do you? So sausage, it's actually a square or a rectangle. So square slice sausage is like one of the ultimate delicacies.
Sounds a bit like spam, if you ask me.
No, much better. I'll bring you some down, Georgie.
Can't wait.
That's good.
If not cricket, what would you have done? Or what would have wanted to do?
You know, it was always sport. My ambition when I was at school, which shows you how academic I was, to be able to wear a pair of shorts to work was my ambition at school. So I've managed that. So yeah, I don't really know. It probably would have been in sport somewhere because I love sport. My background was in building. So my dad owned a building business. So it would probably be in property development or something like that. I love nice property and seeing inside nice houses and good architecture. I love that. So yeah.
Favourite genre of music?
Eclectic, very eclectic. I can go all the way from sort of 70s hippie, James Taylor, Carole King, country and western, Eagles type Wood Mac stuff to Scottish indie bands. I like some dance music as well. So yeah, I love everything, to be honest. I actually really enjoy, I think, music at the moment. A lot of people of kind of my vintage, shall we say, give modern music a hard time. But actually, I think the deregulation of it and not having to be signed by a record company means there's just so much different stuff out there. I think it's great. Just listening to lots of, I listen to all my kids' music as well now. So I got a liking for an Australian band called Tame Impala. Yeah, so I listen to a lot of my daughter's music as well. So yeah, I like all sorts.
Favourite sledge you've ever used or heard?
Probably couldn't repeat it on air to a mixed audience or to any audience, never mind a mixed audience. Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. Played against Australia and got, probably Jason Gillespie said lots of things to me that aren't repeatable and probably aren't very politically correct, but I actually quite enjoyed a bit of banter. But again, we need to be careful with that now, don't we? Because it's, where the line in the sand feels like it's in a different place from where it was before. So I wouldn't encourage sledging. I was actually always big on our teams, the teams that I played in and coached, being really noisy and really aggressive, but in a kind of positive way that was about us rather than the opposition. So yeah, I mean, some of the stuff, Tim Payne's sledging and from behind the stumps, I thought was quite amusing at times in some of the recent Ashes series. But yeah.
Favourite musician?
Paul Weller.
Can you reel?
Reel?
Kaylee, reeling, Scottish dancing.
Oh yeah, I can do it. Yeah.
Will you be introducing it to the girls at Sunrisers?
We may well do some Scottish country dancing. Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, and can you make sure it's videoed, please?
Definitely not.
I would love to see a Sunrisers Kaylee. That would be such a fun event.
That could happen. We've got, between myself, Abtaha is a very passionate Scot as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
So it could happen.
Okay, we're so coming. I'm going to have to dust off my reading skills, which were never very good first.
No, you'd have an invite for that.
Last Netflix or TV series you binged or just watched?
I love Game of Thrones. So Gangs of London's just started again, season 2. So I'd like, Gangs of London was good. Ozark, I really liked. Lockdown was a killer I binge watched everything. I haven't got into Peaky Blinders. My son tells me I have to watch Peaky Blinders and Breaking Bad. I haven't managed them yet, but I'll hopefully get to them. So yeah, I do like a Netflix binge.
Well, I think I'm probably out of questions and I need to go and practice my reeling if I'm going to come to the Sunrises Kaylee.
Practice your dashing white sergeant and your gay Gordons.
But Sunrises reeling, Sunrises Kaylee, Alex, I'll send you tutorial videos and we're going to go.
That could happen.
God, this could be fun. Anyway, we won't keep you that much longer, but before we do go, could you please let our followers know where they can find you on social media?
Twitter is probably the place. I'm not blue ticking. I'm not paying Elon any money. But so at Tennant Spin on Twitter is probably the best place to get me. I haven't really engaged with Insta or Be Real so far. I might get there, but Twitter's my place at Tennant Spin.
Amazing. And obviously we can hear all about what you're up to as well through the Sunrises socials too, which I'm looking forward to. Some more content on there as we kick off the pre-season. I guess it kind of is pre-season, even though it feels like the other one hasn't ended yet. Thank you so much for joining us on Women's Cricket Chat.
Brilliant. Look forward to it too. Thanks very much for having me, guys.
Massive thank you to Andy for coming on and being a guest on the podcast. It's really, really cool to hear his vision for the Sunrises, and we wish him and the team the best for the 2023 season. It's also really interesting to see how he wanted to coach in the women's game and he got that experience, and he was looking for a team to sort of start from the ground up and mould into a consistent winning team. So it's really cool to hear about all of that. And to all our listeners, if you want to keep up to date with everything that we're doing, you can follow us on Twitter at WCricketChat, on Instagram at Women's Cricket Chat, and if you want to give us a like on Facebook, we are Women's Cricket Chat. If you'd like to give our personal Twitters a follow, then it's at Hannity1194, at Georgie Heath 27, at Cassie Coombs 98, at Mehika Barshni, and I'm at Alex Jane Pereira. This has been Women's Cricket Chat. Tune in next time.